respect Kyrie so much. I honestly do. And the way that he stood strong and the whole league came down on him and the media came down on him, they casted him as so evil. And started attributing different things that he didn't even say. That was very frustrating to see.
They had a lot more to say about Kyrie than they do a man doing a hail salute.
All right.
Inauguration.
They didn't have any problem with that.
All right, folks, we've got a special guest in the building today. You know him as a former NBA star who brought intensity to every game, but off the court, he's made just as big of an impact as a writer, activist, and leader in social justice conversations. He's the author of the powerful book, We Matter, Athletes and Activism, where he gives a platform to athletes speaking out on issues that matter the most. Y'all give it up and welcome the one and only Etan Thomas. What's up, cousin?
How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you, brother. You looking real Love Jones over there.
Oh, I love
Looking real neo soul in the building, my guy. Man, we appreciate having you. Also a poet as well. So you are kind of like, the Renaissance man that Lorenz Tate played in Love Jones. And we can be honest, you just Kahoot and you're 6'10", so it's a little bit different. A little different. Man, I want to start at a place where you and I have some point of intersection, right? You being drafted by the Washington Wizards. I worked for the organization for 5 years. It is looking very bleak this season for the Wizards. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? Obviously, they're in kind of a tank mode, likely hoping to position themselves to get Cooper Flagg or Dylan Harper. What are your thoughts on the Wizards in the near future?
I mean, they have a lot of young talent, so they're letting the young guys play. And, it's a situation where people just have to kind of be patient. I wouldn't necessarily say tank, but I know they're letting the young guys kind of go and letting them kind of, because they're young. Like when I say young, they're like teenagers. You know what I mean? Like they're really young.
But then you got Poole and Cools though. So it's like, it's a weird integration of players who have had some success, right? You got 2 NBA champions who at this point are veterans. And then you do have all of the international young players that they've drafted. So it's a weird...
It is a weird thing. A lot of the conversations, they don't know if those two will necessarily be here long term. They're going to just go with kind of the youth wave. But and that's, no disrespect to them. They're just, in different places of where they're trying to develop a team. But, like you said, they're trying to see if they can get one of those top picks in the draft, and things could quickly change. But, I think I like what I see from the young players. It's just that they're so young. So
all right.
They're young.
Let me ask you a real question. I'm sorry. Yeah. They keep drafting international players. Obviously, when you play in D.C., it is a very international market, right? It is the most powerful city in the world. And so you got a lot of different representation from around the world. And it feels like the organization drafts players to have some kind of celebratory night. When Gortat was there, they had the Polish Heritage Night. It's a thing that they do. Yeah. Do you feel like they're using this team as an international point of leverage to create like some kind of cultural unification, or are they actually trying to win a championship? That's my real question, man.
I mean, I haven't heard that question before. I get your point. You know what I mean? You definitely have a point. I don't know if that necessarily is the thought. I know they want to win games. I know they want to build a roster and everything like that. But I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure.
Well, speaking of the young guys, earlier in our show, we talked about Bronny James, JJ Redick just coming out saying that maybe he put him in a bad spot. I don't know if you caught that game against the 76ers, but what do you kind of make of this narrative right now that JJ Redick put him in a bad spot, giving him those extended minutes on Tuesday?
I don't know. It's just when it works, then it's good. If it doesn't work, then it's not good. I mean, Bronny is young. He's young. So, he took a lot of criticism for a lot of different reasons. I was happy to see him have a good game while he was with the G League. If he had 31 points or something like that, had a highlight done. So I was happy to see that. And it's interesting with him because you saw so many people since he got drafted really kind of take turns bashing him. Just clowning him, making fun of him. He doesn't belong here. Nepotism, all these different things. And I'm like, man, and he never really lashed back at the media or lashed back in social media or anything like that. He's just saying, I'm trying to get better, trying to, wait for my opportunity. He's saying all the right things. I'm sure he's been coached by his father to do that. but it just seems like it's a little bit, unfair bashing to him. I mean, he's a young cat. He's learning. He was usually you don't hear people talk about whatever pick he was in the second round
55th
at all. You don't hear anybody reporting on them or talk. So it's, he's not the top 5 pick. So yeah, if he comes into a game right now, you have to kind of judge him on where he was in the draft, not just because you see the last name on the back of his jersey.
Do you feel like JJ put him in a bad spot, or do you feel like he needed those minutes? Like he needs to get this playing time?
I mean, that's the thing. It's tough. It's only if it doesn't work, then he's is looked at as a bad spot. If it works and he played well and everything like that, then he's praised for it. So it's one of those things where players are put into situations, and a coach just testing to see if they're ready, and you see that throughout the league. You'll see they're being reported on for second round picks. That's the only difference.
You are a man who is seen and known to stand very strongly in his convictions. You use your platform to speak about things that are important to you. And I think a lot of that conversation, especially after your career, has been different for the modern day athlete, right? Many athletes are highly, highly criticized and critiqued for using their platform to speak about societal issues and or politics. So I want to ask, where do you fall in terms of athletes being outspoken about political matters? Do you think it's something that belongs in sport or not?
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's a long history. So one of the things that I did before you mentioned my book, so I'm not just shameless plug, but you mentioned my book earlier.
You're good.
What I did with We Matter, Athletes and Activism, is that I wanted to interview a lot of the athletes from the past that I grew up admiring who used their positions in their platform. So I got to interview like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell and, John Carlos and Tommy Smith. And so I grew up really admiring them. So I'm someone who really wanted to push for athletes to continue to use their voice. Now, for a little while, say after Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf and Craig Hodges, it was quiet for a little while. And then there was this resurgence after, Trayvon Martin happened and Kaepernick took a knee, and you had Eric Garner, and you had, all these different, unfortunate deaths at the hands of the police. And then you had George Floyd. So all of these athletes were using their positions, their platforms, and they're speaking and they're, talking and different things. I thought it was wonderful. So I wanted to just highlight it and really to encourage other athletes to continue doing it. Interestingly enough, one of the athletes I interviewed was John Wall. Mm-hmm. And he talked about how he was inspired by seeing Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James and D Wade when they spoke at the ESPYs. And they started talking about it. So he was talking about how he was inspired. But that's the way it is. When you have the top athletes really using their voice and their platform, they inspire the younger ones. He was younger then. Right. So that's a long way of saying, yes, I hope athletes continue to use their voices and their platforms.
So then somebody like Kyrie Irving, mm-hmm. who has been very outspoken about a lot of his beliefs, feels like he's been silenced. He doesn't speak nearly as much about some of the things that he used to be very public about. Do you mm-hmm. feel like because of the brand deals that exist around the sport now, right? Everybody is getting more money outside of the league than just their NBA paycheck. Do you feel like these brands are working to make sure that these athletes are no longer taking such strong and stark political positions?
I would say yes if you didn't have LeBron James. Okay. So LeBron James kind of, he was somebody who was very vocal, speaking on different things, and got a lot of backlash. Trump was literally, saying different things about him, saying now he was, unintelligent, shouldn't be speaking, and they had a whole shut up and dribble. That was all, about LeBron James. So you're going to get the backlash. But one thing that I really respect about him is that it never silenced him. It didn't make him not want to say anything, even if there was backlash. And the backlash is going to come. The backlash was there back in the day. If you talked about to any of the athletes from the past in the 60s, the way that they had backlash was a whole different level of how we have backlash now. Now, you'll see athletes from the 60s praised. You know what I mean? You'll see the images and the statues of Muhammad Ali and John Carlos and Tommy Smith. They're speaking at different places and, having buildings named after them and all that. But that's not how it was when they were speaking back in the 60s. They were like public enemy number one. So now you just have, social media added to it. So now everybody has a platform. So everybody can say things a little bit louder. But they had social media back then. You imagine when Muhammad Ali said he wasn't going to go to the war when he was hanging with Malcolm X, the way that the backlash would have been on social media? Like, I can't even imagine. I respect Kyrie so much. I honestly do. And the way that he stood strong and the whole league came down on him and the media came down on him and the black media especially came down on him. Like everybody that was in a power that be position came down on him. And it was like it was amazing to really see because they casted him as so evil, so and started attributing different things that he didn't even say. So that was a very unique situation in the way that played out, and then the ADL got involved, and he had to have the 8 steps to get back into the good graces of the NBA. That was very frustrating to see. About
they had a lot more to say about Kyrie than they do a man doing a hail salute in our recent inauguration.
ADL didn't have any problem with that.
You know what, Samaria? Let's just move on to the next question. I can go on about that all day.
Go ahead, though.
I'm finna bring up Stephen A. Smith, so you finna be mad again. We talked about Stephen A. Smith a couple of weeks ago when he was on the Rubin Report. And specifically, I wanted to ask you about his thoughts on Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich. He said that they spoke out too much against Trump supporters. Did you feel like Steve and Greg spoke out too much, or do you feel like Stephen A. is just kind of, I don't know, pandering at this point?
Well, I interviewed Steve for my book, and I have nothing but respect for him as well, and how he, for coaches using their platforms. I interviewed Stan Van Gundy. Remember for a while he was really, especially active on social media, and he was saying a whole lot of different things. People with positions and platforms. I believe that when you have a following like that and you're in that position and you use that position, for something that you feel strongly about, why would I not want that? And it's not just for people that agree with me. That's one thing that I don't like that people do. It's okay for an athlete to speak out as long as they agree with what they're speaking out, for. Now, you have the right to disagree and have the right to voice that disagreement, but then saying that they don't have the right to speak just because you don't agree with them, or you question their intelligence, or you question that they know what they're talking about just because you disagree with it. That's being a hypocrite. We can't fall into that category. But no, I love the way that Steve Kerr is using his platform and how he was speaking on whatever. So even when Stephen A. Smith went on and said that he felt that he shouldn't have voted for Kamala Harris and he made a mistake and he has every right to be able to say that. And I have every right to wholeheartedly disagree with everything that he says, but he has the right to say it.
Oh, what a time to be alive, man. Let's return back to sports a little bit. Let's talk about some old court action. You mentioned him earlier. John Wall is one of the more beautiful human beings that I've ever come across. A kid coming from Raleigh, the environment that he came from, overcame a lot to be the number 1 overall draft pick, really was a beacon of light and hope in Washington, D.C. during some very pivotal and critical years for that city. But he's no longer in the NBA. Are you surprised that he's not on the team? And what do you most attribute to him not being on a roster currently?
I am surprised. I value him as a player. I know what he brings to the court. We watched him so long here in DC. We know his energy and what he means to the city, what he did on and off the court. I've taken my kids to different things that he's done. Whether it was Thanksgiving, like turkey handouts and feeding the homeless and all these different things. He's somebody that really cares. So was he perfect? No, but nobody's perfect. I don't think that he should just have been banished from the league. I would like to see him, be able to finish his career, in a Wizards uniform. Just me personally, just because of what he meant to the city. But yeah, I am surprised that it ended the way that it ended for him. It just seemed like he had, a little bit more to give and could really help a roster. And wasn't really given that chance.
The culture around the sport of the NBA feels different today than it did when you were playing. Can you identify anything that stands out to you as a major difference? And it doesn't have to be necessarily negative. It can be positive as well. But a big difference culturally in the NBA today versus when you played.
Well, there's every decade there's a big shift. So we used to talk to guys from like the '80s, and they would say, "Oh man, it's so different now." You know what I mean? And you talk to guys from the '70s, they're like, "Oh man, it's a completely different league." Well, it always kind of shifts. I mean, when I was coming up, it was like Shaq and Alonzo and Patrick Ewing and David Robinson. You know what I mean? Like those Akeem Olajuwon, those type of big men, and they played like big men. Now, everybody wants to shoot the three. Everybody wants to, it's just different. So I think that was a big difference. Then also flopping really became a little bit more prevalent towards the end of my career, really with
Vladi
yeah,
Divac. We can just go ahead and yeah.
No, that whole group, 100%.
Mhm.
And they were the ones that brought it in there, and that was a big difference because when I was playing, if you go to the hole and you get hit and you fall on the ground, you pop back up real quick because you don't want to, look like you got hurt or nothing like that. You pop back up, dust it off, and you go. But now, when cats get hit, they like fall on the ground and they lay there for a little while, and they trying to see if they can get a flagrant, or they, trying to act like they're really hurt, like it's soccer. And that's different because that's not how it was back then. So there's subtle differences, and of course the way, cats. For me, when I was growing up, when we was playing, I mean, even in the league. Baggy clothes were in. You know what I mean? We were wearing templates. We was wearing jeans. We was wearing, oversized shirts. And I like that style. I know I always see the meme.
Really?
Yeah, that's my style.
I feel like the NBA guys currently from a fashion standpoint are wearing bigger clothes. I think it's the NFL dudes who are holding and clinging so dearly to tight clothing items. They on a different type of time. DK Metcalf, bro, when he pulls up to arenas, I'm like, what is happening right now? This is insane. This is
crazy.
Insane. All right, so we are in a new era of big men in the NBA. When you played, you were known to be a defender, a tenacious rebounder. So I'm going to throw some names out there, and you let me know whether it's a tough matchup or you got it on lock, okay?
So it would be a tough matchup for me?
Yeah, defensively. All right, so Joel Embiid.
Yeah, he's definitely a tough matchup. Now, Joel Embiid, when healthy, he's like that dude. You know what I mean?
Better than Jokic? Is he better than Jokic in your opinion?
They're different. Now, when they played and when they went head to head, Embiid did well. It's just that he's, as far as from a health standpoint, he's missed a few games. I'll say it like that.
Yeah, 400 to be exact. Literally. Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, now he's just that skilled big man, and it's different, So he's definitely a matchup problem, and it was just like how Sabonis was back in the day with all the crafty passes and everything like that, and he's great.
Victor Wembanyama.
Oh man, he's the alien. What they say? He's like what 7? What? How tall is he really?
It don't even 7 forever. He's
7 forever, right? So you want somebody 7 forever out there shooting, dribbling, all that stuff. Like come on, man.
So tough matchup.
Of course.
Okay. All right. So Karl Anthony Towns.
Yes, tough matchup. He's the what do you say? He's the self-proclaimed best big man
shooter
big man
ever.
Yeah, whatever. So no, but he's the truth. I'm glad that he's working out and doing well in New York. I grew up a Knicks fan, and what I didn't know if New York was going to really embrace him when he first got traded there. I was like, oh no, this is gonna work. But he's doing well. Definitely a tough matchup. He's a great scorer, can shoot.
All right, cool. So is anybody in the league that you see as kind of like a player comp that reminds you of yourself, somebody who does the dirty, gritty work? Isaiah Stewart in Detroit might be somebody that I look at you.
It's just different now though, because me and some of the guys we run into each other or something like that. We're at like one of our kids' games or our daughter's volleyball games. Guys run into each other. We're talking to Jahadi White. He was saying, "Yeah, we're like the dinosaurs now. Cats don't even play like us no more. Like,
yeah,
we would have had to develop a 3-point shot and pick and pop and all that. That's just not how. That's just not what we did. So yeah, it's just different.
All right, well, we appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and stopping by, chopping it up with us today. You all make sure to check out his book, We Matter, Athletes and Activism. And don't forget to drop a comment below and let us know who you would like to see on the next show.